UK charities are near insolvency after subsidised public sector contracts. I'm going to read into this exclusive from The Guardian, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an exclusive from The Guardian with the headline that UK charities are near insolvency after subsidising public sector contracts. The exclusive reveals that voluntary organisations struggling for grants as local government and NHS contracts fail to cover the costs. How has this been allowed to happen? Charities, guys. Charities. Near insolvency. How terrible could this be? Like, I'm kind of flabbergasted. I really am. Just the headline itself just boils my blood. Sometimes it really does. The consistent failures that this Conservative government has caused, the damage is just untelling, and more problems continue to arise. And my heart goes out to these charities who do amazing work for communities, for people out there, and I just wish I never had to see such headlines. Charities should not exist anyway, in all due respect to them, because it is down to the responsibility of government to look after its citizens, and charities step in because governments are failing to do so, and because these charities are collapsing. Who are the people going to look to? There's going to be no one for them. The private sector, only if you have money in your pocket, and that's the thing. You ain't got money, you ain't going nowhere. Let's read into it. So charities are on the brink of insolvency after subsidising heavy underfunded local authorities and NHS contracts to the tunes of hundreds of millions of pounds donated to them by the public. Voluntary sector leaders have warned. Donations will legalize, I don't know what that word means, legalites, and charity shop profits are being used to prop up thousands of state-funded services in danger of closures, including care homes, homeless shelters, addiction projects, and physical rehabilitation support schemes. See, this right here, this is the kind of things that the government should be putting, the state should be funding these things. Yeah, and they're clearly cutting back on them. How dare they cut back on these kinds of things? How dare they? How disgusting do they have to be to cut back on funding such as these? And they're relying on handouts to keep them going. It's disgusting. It really is. One charity told The Guardian it used £6 million a year raised from the public and other donors to subsidise clinical and care services that were provided under contact to the NHS and local authorities. Its summit described as unsustainable. The refusal of local authorities, the NHS and government departments that fund the real cost of local service contracts, and the built-in assumption that voluntary sector will deliver on the cheap was threatening the existence of vital local services. The National Council of Voluntary Organisations, the NCVO, had said it's potentially catastrophic for communities if the services stop, said Sarah Vibrant, the chief executive of the NCVO. Many services like homelessness intervention and support for victims of domestic violence or sexual abuse will certainly currently exist without charities. She added that for too long, the goodwill of charities have been taken for granted. Public sector contract managers. No, charities will do everything possible, including subsidising public services with charitable funds, to prevent closing the doors to someone. But this can't continue. Exactly. This is exactly what we've spoken about this before, guys. This is what the government wants to do. They do not want to pay for them. They don't want the state to pay for them. They want charities to do it. They want private sectors to do it. They don't want state money, taxpayer money, paying for these services. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I want if my taxpayer money makes a difference to this person's lives, these people's lives, whether it's domestic violence, sexual abuse, homelessness, these kind of things, I'm more than happy for my taxpayer money to go towards that. And I think it's despicable that they're taking that away and forcing charities to scream at the top of their lungs, begging for handouts in order for them to keep these programs going. Although charities have been embedded in the delivery of public services for years, the current scale of the funding gap has pushed many charities to the edge as inflation and demand has soared. And councils and NHS bodies, many in financial crisis themselves, slash grants and refuse to uplift the value of contracts. The Stoke Association, which is contacted by the NHS and local authorities to deliver stroke recovery services for tens of thousands of patients once they have been discharged from hospital, said last year it was paid just under £11 million for services costing nearly £17 million, with the £6 million gap met through public fundraising. It said the funding gap was unsustainable, meaning it would have to cut the volume and quality of services or walk away from contracts. This will have an impact on people recovering from their strokes, emotionally and physically, says Jen Gardner, the Stroke Association Associate Director in North West England. Yeah, another service that makes a difference to people's lives is under threat here because of the government refusing to put its hand in its pocket. Charities fear more will follow in the footsteps of Leonard Cheshire, the social care charity that has been forced to shut care homes and evict vulnerable residents as a result of a financial crisis which caused when its multi-million-pound subsidy of hundreds of underfunded council contracts became unsustainable. That's horrible. A detailed NCVO survey of its members revealed bitterness and frustration among charities who feel that their focus on the needs and vulnerable beneficiaries is exploited by public bodies who routinely expect charities not to charge for the full cost of their services or to deliver it for next to nothing. One respondent said, the local authorities see contract payments as handouts to do-gooders, instead of recognising that they are paying us to work for them because we are able to do it better, cheaper, faster and with a more human and emphatic approach. This survey of more than 330 UK charities have found that, this is the following, the vast majority of subsidising the costs of providing public services, nearly half have not received an uplift in the value of their contract in the past 2 years, despite increasing demands and rising wage and energy costs. So they've done nothing to change the contract statuses of these at all. 2. Contracts were often viable by freezing or cutting staff pay and conditions. One charity made a senior member or staff redundant, then took them back on as a volunteer to do their old job to keep vital services afloat. And how's that person supposed to make a living? 3. A social care charity started a public fundraising campaign and sold a building it owned to raise the cash to maintain services the council would only part fund. We are not sure why it carried on unless something changed, it said. Although there is sympathy for councils and NHS bodies where they find themselves in dire financial straits, there is anger at public sector double standards that accept private contractors must make a profit while routinely expecting charities to run a service at a loss, with donors picking up the tab. The government spokesperson said, we are backing the NHS with record funding. I'm so sick of you keep saying funding. The NHS resource budget in England will be £165.9 billion in 2024-2025, and that does not include the additional £8.1 billion for adult social care and discharge over the 2 years. Local authorities have seen an increase in core spending up from £5.1 billion, 9.4% in cash terms of 2022-23, with almost £60 billion available for local governments in England. You're not answering the goddamn problems here. It's just they say, we're throwing money at it. We've invested this amount. Well, sorry, what's happening here? Why are these charities failing? Why are these charities struggling to keep them going? What is happening here? You keep saying, they always say the same stuff over and over again with no detail, no direct response to the issue that is in this article here. It's the oil that keeps community wheels turning. Local people help be local people. This is how Nick Ralph describes the Good Neighbours Network, a loose federation of 123 neighbourhood groups providing low-level informal care to vulnerable people across Hampshire in South East England. Its 4,000 volunteers drive isolated older citizens to hospital appointments, helping them with shopping, dog walking, or DIY tasks, and organise lunch clubs and other social events. It is a classic preventive charity works, knitting communities together and reducing pressure on overstretched hospitals and care services. It keeps vulnerable people independent in their homes for longer and out of the expensive hospital beds. It's the oil that keeps community wheels turning, says Ralph, the Chief Executive Director of the Council for Social Responsibility, a charity that supports the scheme on behalf of the Church of England Dossier of Portsmouth. The scheme costs just $150,000 a year to run, but is now under threat. Hampshire County Council, itself has faced financial meltdown, scrapped its grant in March, and local NHS commissioners says its owned $50,000 a year grants is at risk. The charities, whose 4 staff ensure they are county-wide army of volunteers are trained, insured and security checked, will use its own funds to keep the service running until April. After that, it is unclear how many local groups will be able to continue. Ralph understands the council's predicament. Its budgets have been hammered by government cuts, austerity, but he believes the savings are short-sighted. There are lots of community support as a result. As a result, will be more costs will be thrown into the state, he said. Again, guys, more austerity. These cuts have just been brutalised, cut to the bone, and charities who are already doing everything they possibly can are just being. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. It really is, and I just wish there was something. I just wish we had a government that understands what it's doing, and I like to think that Labour will use and apply common sense to all these issues taking place. I understand that there's going to be an impossible challenge for them, but I hope they will also see the humanity in what has happened over the last 13 years and do everything it can to help. And at least the least I would want a Labour government to do is respond accordingly to these crises that it will face. And if it responds accordingly with the right words, then I will be a lot more optimistic. But if it comes out with the same kind of lines, the same kind of rhetoric that we are hearing from the Conservatives, I will be very despondent and very angry for sure, because we need that general election so badly right now, because every minute, every second, every day that passes, someone somewhere is suffering, someone somewhere is going to lose their life because of this government and its actions that it is causing on the British people. What do you guys make of this story? What do you make of this exclusive? Is it solely on the blame of the British government and the way it is done, the austerity? Is it just on them? Have they been investing enough? What do you guys honestly think? Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very soon.